are a lot of pros and a lot of cons when it comes to working remotely as an interior designer. Firstly, let's discuss my situation before we get into the pros and the cons. So, I've been a self employed interior designer for 5 years in Lahore, Pakistan, and recently I have shifted to Toronto where I am pursuing an interior design license. Therefore, I'm in design school again. However, I didn't let immigration pull me down, and I decided that I was still gonna practice interior design remotely with my clientele back at home. And therefore, I decided to go into the world of e-design and working remotely as a designer. So, what are the pros? What are the cons? Firstly, to understand that, let's first decide what e-design actually is. E-design, as it is kind of self-explanatory, it is design services that are provided through the internet, and it's becoming a bit more well-known. Thank you, COVID. And yeah, so it's providing design services online to clients wherever they might be in the world. Traditionally, designers tend to interact and provide their services for clientele that are within their physical location. However, e-design has kind of like helped us remove those boundaries, and that's how I kind of created the solution to provide design services to people and my clientele back in my hometown. Pros would be, of course, it's remote. You can provide services to anybody, anywhere in the globe. However, remember, this is through a design platform. This is through a platform. If you're a freelancer, you can provide services through Fiverr, Upwork, etc. However, what I'm doing is that I have my own website. My clientele is still limited to my hometown, Lahore. As a student of design, again, it really does help that I'm working remotely while continuing my studies in order to get a license for here. And yeah, that flexibility does open up more opportunities for me, and hopefully, as I get more experienced in the country that I am, I can actually widen and broaden that client base. So yeah, remotely through a platform or through your own website, it depends upon how you want to go about that. Other than the most obvious pro, which is being a remote designer and all of the flexibility that has, is the second pro, which is it's less time consuming. Physically going back and forth for market surveys, dealing with contractors, labor party, uh, you know, multiple other vendors as well. That takes a lot of time. If you're managing things remotely, you're able to kind of interact with all of these people and able to manage all of these people via Zoom meetings or any other platform that you use. So for clients that are in Lahore and they have their and contractors that are in Lahore, it's quite common to use WhatsApp as an interactive platform, communicating with labormen and contractors and the client through that, through voice messages, through videos, through pictures. So WhatsApp is the Zoom when it comes to dealing with clients, vendors, or contractors in Pakistan. But you can use any kind of platform and it'll do the exact same thing. So yeah, less time consuming. So you're working as a remote designer, you have more time on your hands. You can use that time to focus on attracting more clientele to your business, and be able to, of course, take on more projects because you're not physically invested in one design site or construction site. You're able to take on more. Just the sheer amount of time that you save on traveling or managing people physically Once you're able to do that through the internet remotely, it opens up this huge possibility of things that can be done with the remaining time that you have. So less time working remotely, attracting more clients, and you're able to, of course, do more design projects. Another pro that probably has not occurred in your head is less responsibility. Um, not that you're not gonna be providing like proper services to a potential client, but because you're not involved in those day-to-day decision making or those day-to-day issues that happen on the site, you are definitely a bit more less responsible. From my experience, if you're physically working on a design project, you have to wear multiple hats. You're the coordinator, you're the manager, you're the person, you're the problem solver. If contractors don't show up, if labor party people don't show up, if timelines get messed up, if things don't arrive on time, if things aren't made in time, um, it's your problem. So if there are issues at the physical site that are not related to design or design work, you are at a distance, and yeah, you're not as responsible as the people who are actually there present on site getting the work done. And another more sweeter pro, I would say, is that quicker payments. You get quick payments. As an interior designer, I don't know which part of the world that you're watching in. In Pakistan, there's a huge issue of payments being delayed. The reason for that is because generally in the work environment over there, when it comes to working with labor parties, contractors, vendors, things do get delayed. And when they get delayed, projects get delayed, and when projects get delayed, the designer's payment gets delayed. So how I used to do my payments before was that if it's a full-on project, I would take, depending upon the budget of the project as well, I would take the first initial 20%. Then we'll have like landmarks that we were gonna achieve on the project, and that's how 20%, and that's how we would attain our like 100%. But for medium or small size projects, it's actually 50% upfront, and then the remaining 50 you get after everything is done. However, if you're working remotely, you get that 50% once your design has been sent to the client. That's a system that I've kind of made for myself, but it might be different for you. But if you are providing additional management services, of course your final payments would be wrapped up once the project is wrapped up. But in terms of percentages, you get your payments, you get a huge chunk of your payments earlier rather than later, when everything else is complete, which takes a really long time if it's a big project. If it's a medium-sized project, smaller projects, that it's fine. But for big and medium, it takes a while. I had this one project that it was done during COVID. It took us like around 2 years to actually finish that. It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of like structural changing. It took 2 years. The kitchen was amazing, but yeah, it also took 2 years for me to get paid. But yeah, and that happens too. The first con is documentation. As an interior designer, you need to document your work. You need to document what you're doing, how you're doing it, what the final result is. Like, I personally document everything that could be seen in my previous videos as well. But what designers do traditionally, or what most designers do, is they obviously take pictures and videos of their final look or final project once it's complete. That's something that you can't do remotely. It could be possible if you hire like a photographer or a videographer, wherever that might be, but that might cost you a lot, and it is hard to kind of manage that. It is hard to, like, if you're doing like full on documentation like I do, that's an issue with me right now as well. I can't document any of the projects that I do take on remotely. The cost of that, the cost of hiring a videographer for that would be a lot. I can't afford that. And yeah, if you're doing it for any other place, any other city, it can become a bit cumbersome, and it is definitely harder to like find somebody to document stuff for you, to document the process for you, or take the final pictures. The biggest issue that I've had with documentation before is that the clients want to settle into their space as soon as possible, and it's really hard to kind of tell them, wait, please, let me be able to bring my photographer in. Or if you're doing it yourself like I did, for a really long time, for them to kind of wait and please can I take pictures. Like, they're not going to tell you not to, but like from my experience, people start moving in their personal belongings into their spaces as soon as the labor party, the contractors, or like as soon as you're done. So yeah, that becomes an issue, and you can't, like, ethically, morally, it's a bit weird to kind of like move the client's things. I mean, like, you could if you ask nicely, but it just doesn't work once they're in that space. The other biggest con for me right now is that thrill of developing a project right in front of you. You do it digitally, you submit it to the client, they're happy with it, they give the approval, everything's done and dusted. But if you're providing physical management services, seeing the design being implemented in front of you is a huge, like, it's a huge it's a huge deal. Seeing how something that you made on a platform being executed in front of you, and seeing that thing kind of like turn out as you had imagined and as your client had imagined, and their satisfaction and just the satisfaction of getting that done and it being physically present in front of you, that's something that you cannot do remotely because you're not there. It does mean a lot more work, as I did mention before. You're more involved, but that thrill that you get after, the skeleton of something is done. If you're doing a kitchen, the base boxes are done, the plumbing is done, things like that. Once the flooring is installed, things like that, once they're done, and when you have that final look, yes, you're getting paid to do the design work and the design management work, but seeing that from an artist's point of view or a designer's point of view, seeing something being built in front of you, as your vision, like as you had envisioned, it's something that people who've experienced it can, like, relate. Brings me to the last con, which is loss of design. If you're working remotely as an interior designer and providing remote services, remote e-design services, you're at a distance, you've given a design, but things can kind of move away from the design. Your client tends to take the larger role in this whole on-site design development that I mentioned before. So they're in charge of the day-to-day decisions, and sometimes this does happen. Clients don't ask their designers, or they don't consult us in the decision making process. You've done something digitally, you've given them the renderings, you've given them the floor plans and elevations. They can move away from that. If you're not there to, like, be very, what's the right word, be very like firm about the design decisions that they should make, they can move away from that. It may seem as if it's not a big deal, but it really does matter. I'll give you an example. For you've told your client to use a specific type of hardware, or you've told them to use a specific type of tile or backsplash for a kitchen, let's say, and it was out of stock. They can't find it. They're doing the market survey and they end up selecting something completely different. And they've already spent their money on it and it's already in the process of being implemented. They've spent the money on it. You, as a designer, can't tell them that that was a horrible decision, because that's gonna like create friction between you and your client. B, they've already spent the money on it and it's on their walls. It may have been a bad decision on their part. It's definitely the client's fault for not involving you. But that does tend to happen and it impacts the design as a whole. If you're not using the tile work or the types of cabinetry or the types of, like, lighting that was recommended to you and suggested to you by a professional, and you end up doing things on your own, it does become a DIY project, and things do move away from that whole like design phase and that development phase. Because please do keep in mind, interior designers, they aren't just, they don't select a trendy design and they're just like, oh, this will look really nice. You like it looks really nice, go for this. Like, they evaluate your space, they evaluate your space and your needs, they see what kind of things that you like, and they create something according to that. There's a lot of dimensions, measurements, visual development involved. If you change any of the decisions or the major things that your designer has suggested for you, minor, maybe you can get away with it. Major, it has an impact it'll have an impact on your final design. So those are the pros and cons when it comes to working as a remote interior designer. If you're interested in a consultation or getting any design work done, link is in the description. If you like this video, please do leave a like and do subscribe. And if you wanna be more involved in my day-to-day activities, do follow me on Instagram. And yes, see you in the next one.